Hello, fans. Hello, friends. Hello, everyone watching this today. Welcome to the first ever edition of Wrestle Vibes Live. This is going to be a fun time. It's the first ever stream on this channel, so we're going to see how this breaks out, how this ends up, how this goes down. But before that, of course, as always, welcome to everyone in the chat. Be sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and all that jazz. Sound off in the chat. There's a lot of people out there right now who are already saying hello. Hello, Eric. Hello, Jay Barnacles. Hello, everyone. Spec in the chat. Hello, not to you, Wall Street Money. But it's a big day. It's a big week. AEW All In is coming up. AEW All In Wembley Stadium. 40,000 plus, according to WrestleTix. We'll talk about the attendance and so much more. But today, I'm going to preview all of the big matches, all of the big moments, all of the big rumors, and so much more heading into arguably the biggest show of the year, AEW All in London. Before we get to that, though, you may notice that I am wearing a mask. Well, that is because for a lot of people, at least long-time subscribers of this channel, you've probably never seen my face. Unless you've gone over and subscribed to my live stream channel, youtube.com/Big Ohm, which you can do in the description. But today, I'm going to be wearing this, and we will be previewing all of the big matches until I get overheated and eventually take this off. That's my version of a lame face reveal. But let's take a look at the cards so far for All In. By the way, who's excited for All In? If you're excited for All In, leave a dub in the chat. Here are 9 of the big matches. There will probably end up being at least 12 matches that are going to be at this show on Sunday. You have, of course, the biggest match of them all, Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, AEW Men's World Heavyweight Championship on the line. You also have Willow versus Mercedes Moné. Two star-studded athletes going at it in a match to determine the AEW Women's World Champion. Remember, Willow Nightingale has had a very tough time beating my queen, Mercedes Moné. We'll see if Mercedes had a tough time beating my queen, Willow Nightingale. We'll see if she can do that. We also have three-way Takeshita, Fletcher, and the greatest wrestler of all time, according to me, Kazuchika Okada, going at it for the International Championship. Cope and Cage defending the AEW Men's World Tag Team titles against the Young Bucks. You also have the Birds of Fury versus Megan Bayne. Oh, is the music loud? Is the music loud, guys? Actually, yeah, that's a good question. I should have asked, is the music loud? Because if the music is loud, we can turn it off. I just wanted to have some ambiance in the background. Anyway, we also have Last Man Standing, TNT Championship on the line, the inclusion of Sting potentially, and of course, Baby Sting in that match. And we have the Casino Gauntlet match to determine the number 1 contender for the men's world title. And of course, we have the final of the Continental Cup. And because Tony Khan could not let us go without one more match, there's a trios title match, Hangman Page Bandito, and Brody King versus a whole bunch of tag teams, potentially the New Day. We'll get into that and so much more. Tony Khan is going to add 7 matches. Dub. Probably. But let's talk about just the general vibe going into All In. So, All In has always been AEW's biggest show. I think in years past, the build to the shows has, quite frankly, been a lot better, a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. I think AEW very apparently did not do their best to try to capitalize on the momentum that many of these storylines, many of these athletes, many of these talent had going into All In season. I think that Plus, you had the complication of having Forbidden Door. You had the complication of having the new pay-per-view, Redemption, right there in between that. And I think for a lot of fans, and quite frankly, more importantly, for the storylines that they've been trying to tell, it just cooked any semblance of a build. Outside of, I think, the two big main events, the build has largely been pretty bad. I'll be upfront with that. That's my opinion. I know many people will probably have different opinions, but the build has been lacking. I think that, we've just thrown together this trio stuff over the past couple of weeks, like really the past two Dynamites, and we have one in between Wembley and now. You have the AEW TNT Championship on the line in a match that, of course, has been probably, you could argue, been built since Double or Nothing. But Kevin Knight went on a side quest. And I'm not saying the Knight Redemption match wasn't great with Kenny, but he went on a side quest. He tried to go for the World Championship. That left Darby Allin in kind of limbo for a couple of weeks there, and it interrupted the build. So it's just a confluence of factors. The pay-per-views, I think there was a lack of attention to detail for a lot of the mid-card matches. And quite frankly, I think Tony, for lack of a better term, went all in on the two big matches that he knew everyone wanted to see. Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega moved a shit ton of tickets, pardon my French, for this show. There is no question about it. You can argue until you're blue in the face. The reality is that is what the majority of this show has been built around. And I see people saying in the chat that the build to last year's show was better. And quite frankly, I think it was because AEW needed to do their best storytelling for that show. They needed to do it. They were struggling way more to sell tickets for that show than this show. They were going to hit 40,000 even if they had MJF versus Ospreay, which is going to be the match. Because the reality is that London, England, the UK was going to tune in, show up for Will Ospreay in some way, shape, or form. Now, they're definitely going to show up for Ospreay and Omega more because of Omega's involvement, because this is like the biggest feud that they could possibly have going into their biggest show of the year. But that being said, you need to be able to tell stories outside of the main events. And I know people are going to take issue with this. The trios titles, even though they're being held by three guys, you could argue, are either up-and-coming main eventers or true main eventers in the case of Hangman Page. The trios titles have largely been an afterthought for the majority of their time in AEW. There was a time where we felt like we were going to get some genuine buzz around a trios division, a genuine attempt at building a trios division. And that didn't happen. Yet, we are now supposed to believe that everybody and their mother is gunning for this belt, for these titles, for these championships. I don't know. If you want to build a genuine division, whether it's tag team, whether it's trios, whether it's anything, you need to have people, number one, wanting and expressing their desires consistently for those titles. And number two, more importantly, you need to build actual feuds outside of those belts. You have a depth of talent that any wrestling company throughout the history of this sport would be jealous of. You have two shows, two 2-hour shows every week with an overrun of 30 minutes for Dynamite usually most weeks. There should be the forethought at trying to get more stories being told amongst those trios divisions. That's just my case. That's just my thinking. That's just my honest thought. Anyway, people in the chat are saying, you think they can get to 50,000 for Wembley? Well, right now they are set up, according to WrestleTix, for 45,000. And I think they'll certainly get at least close to that number. If you guys remember, the last time they ran Wembley Stadium, where I, ironically enough, got this shirt. The last time they ran Wembley Stadium, they were able to get 55,000 tickets distributed, which is very good. And if you look at, the way AEW's generally been selling tickets, the novelty of Wembley has worn off. I think the ability to sell 40 or 45,000 tickets, which is probably going to be around the range that they're going to be in, is very good. Many people look at AEW and they immediately want it to be as big as a machine as World Wrestling Entertainment. They want it to just overnight become this cultural beast, this juggernaut. They want it to become Disney. That does not happen even over a span of 10 years. It doesn't happen over a span of 20 years. We are in a very different ecosystem from a media standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, than we were in the 90s. Because whether you guys like it or not, WCW wasn't this organization or this company that spawned overnight to overtake WWE. Through its roots in Georgia Championship Wrestling and the NWA, it had a built-in audience for decades. You had people watching those acts, watching those stars, watching that history for decades. So, for something new to come up, you wanted to immediately be as the fact that AEW is where they are, with whatever TV deal they have, with selling the stadium shows on a yearly basis at the degree they do, it is insane. Because WWE, for the vast majority of this millennium, had a monopoly on the business, on the entire industry, and in many ways they still do. The only reason they don't, and you could probably argue they don't, is through AEW's own very existence. So, that's where we're at. And that is why, logistically, a non-WWE entity selling that many tickets is a very healthy thing. Not just for the company, we don't stand companies here, but for the sport of wrestling. People are interested in different styles of wrestling. That's the amazing part of this sport. I'd like Will to face MJF at his first title defense. Well, we'll talk about Will Ospreay and his first title defense and all that stuff in just a little bit. I will tell you where I think this is going. But first, let's talk about some of these matches. I want to get into, first, the TNT Championship match. So, as many of you remember, Darby Allin was the AEW Men's World Champion. And he lost that belt back at Double or Nothing 2026. I was there live. It was a fantastic show. Probably the second best AEW show of all time. But he wrestled at that show. He lost to MJF. And as he's getting carted away, Kevin Knight, a guy who in storyline was close to Darby Allin, a guy who Darby Allin was friends with, a guy who had everything to prove in this business, he takes out Darby. He frog splashes onto him while he's on the stretcher. Then he turns that stretcher over, cementing his heel run. And I've loved what I've seen out of Kevin Knight over the past couple of weeks. I think he's fantastic. I think he's getting better as a promo. He still has a ways to go in that department, obviously, but he's getting better and better every single day. And I like the fact that they have him taking out Darby. They're establishing Kevin Knight as a threat so that even if, hypothetically, he were to lose at Wembley Stadium, it wouldn't be, I feel like Rey Mysterio adjusting my mask at WrestleMania 21, but even if you were to lose, you would still go away with the feeling of, well, this guy had Darby's number going into this match. But I am loving what I'm seeing out of this. This is like one of the few like mid-card feuds that I feel like actually had a somewhat decent build. I did not like, and I'm on record saying, I did not enjoy the deviation that Kevin Knight took from this feud. I think it took away from this feud, obviously, but beggars can't be choosers in 2026 as far as wrestling goes. So I'm hyped for this, and the biggest reason is we have the involvement now of a guy we've been waiting for almost 2 years. We have Stephen Borden, Sting's son, who dressed up as Wolfpack Sting back at Revolution 2024 when he made that entrance with his father. Caught everyone's attention doing those big splashes in the corner, much like his dad did. And kid's a very good athlete, played at the University of Kentucky. He is big, bad, and I think in many ways he gives off that energy. I saw him live in Baltimore just this past Wednesday wrestling an ROH match, and he gives off that star energy. He looks like a star. He moves like a star in that ring, and he doesn't have those tread on the tires like many other wrestlers do. I think he can do some serious damage, and this is going to be a big test for him. He has some involvement in this match. He's going to be doing something. He's probably going to make way for his dad to come through, because we cannot have a Wembley show, of course, without Sting, or as Ric Flair would say, Sting, 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 coming out to Metallica Seek and Destroy. So, going to be cool when that happens, hopefully, inshallah. But I'm looking forward to that, obviously. I think that the way this match ends up going, because conventional wisdom would tell you they're not taking the championship off of Kevin Knight just yet. But if you look at the way that, I think Kevin Knight has been portrayed, I think that they're getting ready to move him up. And by up, I mean away from the TNT division and probably up to the international championship. Because we all know that when it comes to the hierarchy of the many titles that AEW holds, world titles at the top, international is that second rung. Continental and TNT are kind of interchangeable. At the very bottom, you have the national title. So in my view, I could see him going up and winning that championship. I think the TNT championship at this point would probably be really well served being held by a Darby Allin. So I think in the end, Darby Allin will win. What I think should happen, and the more fun thing that I would love to see personally, is Kevin Knight retain. Kevin Knight retains. He beats up Darby Allin. He bloodies him. He puts him in a body bag. He gets ready to set him on fire, a la Wembley 2024 when Jack Perry tried to do it. And then we get Sting and Baby Sting, Stephen Borden, coming out to save Darby Allin. And we use this as a launching pad for Baby Sting, a.k.a. Stephen Borden. I'm going to call him Baby Sting. By the way, okay, this is getting way too hot for me to do commentary in. So, face reveal for the two people who don't know what I look like. Boom. Oh my gosh, that was hot. Wow, that was, I don't know how Mystico does it. I don't know how Ray does it. I don't know how Penta do it. Like, I don't know how any luchador does it. Shout out to the luchadors. But, oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. That feels so nice. All right. Well, now that I know why Juventud took off his mask, we can talk a little bit more about this show. But I think using this as a launching pad for Stephen Borden is very important. He is not getting any younger. He's like 34, 35. And I think it's not Baby Sting. It's El Hijo del Sting. Well, there we go. El Hijo del Sting. But whether you want to call him El Hijo del Sting, whether you want to call him Baby Sting, whatever, Sting Jr., the reality is that I think using this as a launching pad for him would be monumental for his career. In ring, he still has a ways to go, but I think you don't waste any time with capitalizing on this. He's going to have a lot of eyes on him here at Wembley, and I think following this, if you want to go the route of Kevin Knight beats him, and then at the end, it's like building up to this big moment of Stephen Borden and Kevin Knight, I think you go all in, pardon the pun, on that feud and have Sting Jr. go after the TNT Championship. Excuse me. I think that would be monumental for his career. It would be a big test for him because he has been kind of hidden away in dark matches. He's been hidden away in Ring of Honor. And my thinking is he has the name recognition. He is a second-generation star. He is getting older. He is in his mid-30s. And at a certain point, you need to have that big launching pad feud for him. I think this could be it. And I think Kevin Knight would get the rub a little bit if they're able to get Sting back for a couple of spots, not matches obviously, but spots where Kevin Knight beats up Sting and that builds up this match. I would love to see that. So my heart says I want Kevin Knight to win because I hope this is leading to bigger and better things for Stephen Borden. But my brain tells me that Darby will probably be winning this match. But of course, I want to hear from you guys. We also have the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championships on the line. The Brawlin' Birds versus the Divine Dominion, Megan Bayne and Lena Cross, versus my queens, Alex Windsor and Jamie Hayter. So here's the thing about this match, right? This has been probably the longest build of a match that we've had for All In so far. I also believe that, the build has been very inconsistent. We have been kind of waiting. I think it feels like this match was decided on a couple of months ago. And, the Birds have been literally just cutting promos on Divine Dominion, for the past couple of months. They're coming after the titles. They're coming after the belts. They're coming after the belts. We hear it time and time again. And the art of storytelling, right, is that, yes, you want to build up that anticipation. You want to make sure that people have time to be invested. You want to make sure that when you can, you have long-term storytelling. And that's all fine and good. That part AEW did right. The meat of it, though, was lacking. Up until the past couple of weeks, again, post-redemption, sure, you could argue that it's been a decent build or a good build even if you want to. I just don't think that the past couple of weeks make up for the past couple of months of just stagnation. And it's a large problem that's loomed over AEW for a very long time, longer than people really like to admit. There has been a lot of stagnation in their feuds. Now, it's not like Judgment Day levels, of course. It's not to the point where we're still waiting for them to figure out what's going on with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. But it does make you pause and ask some very important questions. Well, if you were going to just kind of stop and not move forward with this big moment, or you were just going to tease it, why don't you have something else in place for these teams? Why don't you have something else in place for the Brawlin' Birds? Again, it's this idea of, we get it. People going after the belts is a very important thing. It's essential to building up the reputation of these titles. But you also, at the same time, need to have feuds in these tag divisions, in these other divisions, for nothing else but proving who's the best. You need to have feuds that go beyond the belts to make these divisions truly matter and feel real. Because I think it a lot of times feels like people are just cycling in and out of the tag division, in and out of the trios division, in and out of the singles division, whenever it suits the story, or it suits the booking. Not the story, the booking, because those are two different things. So for me, not a huge fan of that part of it, especially when I know that AEW can do better and should do better. That being said, and I think this goes for the majority of the matches on this card, if not all. These two are going to beat the ever-living crap out of each other, and it's probably going to be beautiful to watch. You have the hometown heroes, and I think that is going to be an ongoing theme of this show, where you're going to have hometown heroes conquer the day. I think that in the end, if you don't end up putting the belts on Jamie Aya and Alex Windsor, you're going to probably risk these two becoming very cold. Colder than they already are. So that's where I'm kind of coming from. That's why I think, no brainer, they should win. No brainer, they probably will win. But then, the big question is, Lena Cross and Megan Bayne, where do they go from here? I would have Megan Bayne and Lena Cross have a big moment at the end of the match where one of them turns on the other. Ideally, you do it where Megan Bayne turns on Lena Cross. And then you build up the big bad Megan Bayne, and going into a feud with her tag team partner. And this is the irresistible force versus the immovable object. Make them go out there, have a kick-ass match. And then you build up Megan Bayne for the singles division to go after the TBS championship, to go after the Women's World Championship. Maybe she's the one who takes it off of whoever wins that main event match between Mercedes and Willow. I'm not giving away my spoilers just yet. That's what I would do. That's what I would love to see. You know what else I would love to see? All of you guys smash that thumbs up. I would love to see that. It would make my freaking day. I would also love for you guys to check out the pinned comment in the chat. Right after this is over, we are going to go over to Big On PW, which is my other channel, and we're going to shoot the shit, talk the breeze, do it up, and have a fun time. That's where we have our fun streams and do a lot of nonsense, as many viewers in this chat can probably attest to. So go check that out as well, pinned in the chat. We got to talk about Bayley, WWE, potentially trying to buy AEW, so much more fun and innuendo coming up over there. But before we get to that, let's talk about the damn Continental Cup. So the Continental Cup has been, I'll be honest, pretty dog shit. Have not been a big fan of what this has entailed. Have not been a big fan of the just weird nature of, oh my gosh, Nigel McGuinness. We get it. Nigel is injured, and he's wrestling injured. He's cleared one day. He's not cleared the other. And somehow this affects the ROH pay-per-view. I think that part has been very messy. You add in the complication of Eddie Kingston. I just like, whatever it is, it has not been for me. And we all understand this is made for Jon Moxley. Let's be honest here. This Continental Cup was made for Jon Moxley to have something somewhat relevant to do going into All In Wembley. And great. But now the issue is, you had the Continental Cup, but you recently just had another tournament to determine the main events of All In, both on the men's and women's side. You just had the Owen Hart Cup just like a month and a half ago. So like, you immediately start another tournament. I think you're risking, and in my view, tell me if I'm wrong, chat. I know some of you agree with me. You're risking tournament fatigue. And like, again, the matches have been good, as someone in the chat says. The matches have been good, but the tournament has been weird because it just feels like, you know what it feels like? It feels like filler. In large part, the Continental Cup has felt like filler. You don't get the same vibe from the Continental Classic. It doesn't feel as big. The star power, is somewhat there, but You have no vignettes building up how big this is, how much this matters. I'm just supposed to believe it because Tony Khan says so. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm not a huge believer in that. I don't believe that this Continental Cup in storyline is something I should care about because it just feels like it's been lazily put together. Again, and it might just be a Jon Moxley vanity project. All right, if that's what we're doing, that's what we're doing. But this has been one of the things where, like I love Nigel, and I understand that they want to do the hometown hero thing. Nigel McGuinness coming into Wembley Stadium for a championship match, a singles match. I 100% got it. They have not told that story well on TV. They have not explicitly stated this. You've kind of heard this offhand from like Tony Schiavone on commentary, who, God bless Tony, not a huge fan of his ability to get that across a lot of the time. It's just, for me, it's a combination of tournament fatigue. It's a combination of the inability for AEW to make it feel like the wrestlers really give a crap about this. The complication of Eddie Kingston not being a part of it, unfortunately, due to not being cleared is just very sad, quite frankly. And I'm just at my wit's end when it comes to this. And, say what you want. The matches have been decent or very good in some cases, but there's nothing behind it. There's no substance behind it. And again, not everything needs to have a weeks-long build. Not everything needs to be this long-term thing. But when you hold, a product to a standard like people generally do AEW, you expect some good stuff. You expect some compelling television, some compelling narratives to be woven throughout the tournament. Like, the Continental Classic is a great example of this. I love the storytelling aspect of the Continental Classic. I love it. I think it's some of the best things that AEW do. It feels like AEW puts on the Continental Classic and it somehow rejuvenates people's interest in a lot of the upper mid-card wrestlers that AEW has. They have not replicated that in any way, shape, or form in the Continental Cup. And of course, it's building Mox versus Nigel McGuinness. We all know that. It's not going to be anyone else. It's Nigel McGuinness and Mox. And yeah, Eddie can't get cleared, but Nigel can. Well, I mean, that's a storyline they've been telling with Nigel. That's a storyline they've been telling for weeks at this point with Nigel. That, he can't get cleared. But we all know it's bullshit. Omar, any reason why Tony isn't doing Casino Gauntlet for women? They haven't announced it yet, but I doubt they want to do 2 Casino Gauntlet matches on the same show. That's probably why. Anyway, getting back to the Continental Cup, if we were to presume that Nigel is going to play a role in the main event, or in the final round, then I believe that he will win. I believe that he should win. And that's not simply because I think that, it is going to be a great hometown moment. I think it will be, obviously. And regardless, it will be. But I also think that we are at the point with Mox and the Continental Championship where I'm just at the point where I just don't know what else they can do. And if this is going to become Mox's, participation trophy, just to have a belt and feel important, I don't want it. Stagnation, as I mentioned before, is a plague when it comes to AEW storytelling. And especially in the mid-card, especially with this Mox stuff, it's not given any of the promise that we got when he won the belt back at World's End. Because at that point, everyone believed, oh my God, this is the disintegration of this badass group. This is going to end up being, a vehicle for one of these other guys to take over the Death Riders, and probably the rejuvenation and the resurrection of a good guy, Jon Moxley. But I don't know. I hope that Mox doesn't retain, because just quite frankly, I don't really care about him holding the Continental title. Yes, he has banger matches. That's great. He's better than that. He's better than that. Where are the guests? They all canceled. You want the honest truth? They all canceled. No. Most people did cancel. And then, I just decided to do this on my own at that point. But it's okay. There will be guests. There will be a Wrestle Vibes Live Part 2. Do not worry. Eventually, we will do another one. We will do a better job of coordinating guests and locking them into deals. But, yeah. People had prior commitments. People had family commitments. So I obviously put content creation second to all of that. So that's what happened there. But Nigel should win. And maybe this is a way, as Lou in the chat says, maybe this is a way to get the belt off of Mox so that he can go challenge a presumptive winner in Will Ospreay for the title, the World Championship later. But, yeah, we'll see. We will also see, for probably the final time, Cope and Cage teaming up as tag team champions. And they will be teaming up for the first time to go up against the Young Bucks. If you had asked me in 2018 if we were going to get to see Edge and Christian versus the Young Bucks, I would ask you not if, but how much you had smoked prior to our conversation. And how strong that stuff was. It was unfathomable. It was so unlikely that it is one of the few things in professional wrestling that I probably would have said never to. Yet here we are, somehow, some way, in the year 2026. And we're getting to see two of the greatest tag teams of all time go up against each other. Edge and Christian, in my view, for the better part of the early 21st century, were the best tag teams in the world. They were the best. And the Young Bucks arguably have taken that mantle. I think the Young Bucks genuinely make a case for the greatest tag team of all time. And in my view, they are, just as far as accomplishments and impact on the business. It's just no one has had the level of an impact that they have. They have changed professional wrestling forever. The trajectory of wrestling will never be the same because of the Young Bucks. And to think that we're getting that, to think that we're getting this epic encounter between these two teams is just awesome to me. So, Young Bucks, Cope and Cage, the build-up, as we've seen with a lot of the build-up of this card, lacking up until recently. Part of it, of course, is because we had the roadblocks. Literally, it's crazy how Redemption literally feels like a version of Roadblock, the pay-per-view that WWE used to put up before WrestleMania every year, in between like the Rumble, in between Chamber and Mania. It genuinely feels like Roadblock. So they have Roadblock, aka Redemption, where they're going off and doing their little side quest. Young Bucks too. And okay, maybe we're going to get some compelling stuff in between. And that just has not happened. We do 2 weeks of backstage segments, 2 weeks of vignettes, 2 weeks of a sit down that led to, that was just a as my friends over across the pond, kids cover your ears, as my friends across the pond would say, a wank fest. And I am waiting for these two to have a reason to go at each other outside of the belts. Sure, You want to have a feud that goes, oh, I'm the best tag team of all time. I'm the best tag. How many times are we going to hear this? The Young Bucks have been having that feud with FTR for the past, 5 years. It feels like every time we see the Young Bucks and FTR go at it, we're the best tag team of all. And you're just, okay, we're swapping FTR for Cope and Cage. Not to say Cope and Cage don't have that credibility. Of course they do. But give me something else. Give me something more. You had the spear you had the super kick this week that led to everyone losing their minds, and we finally got some interaction between these two teams. Great, amazing. That should have happened right when the Young Bucks were announced as the competitors for this championship. This is not me trying to nitpick, because I know the match is going to be fun. I know the match is going to be fun. We're all going to enjoy All In. But there's a standard of storytelling that time and time again is just not there for the majority of these mid-card matches. And it sucks because I'm excited to see Cope and Cage versus the Young Bucks. This is a match that I've been dreaming about for years, ever since Edge returned. But I wish I had more of a reason. I wish that feeling of excitement was a little bit more. I wish that there was more than just the underlying understanding that I have as a fan that, oh, this is just going to be cool. We want more stories. As Wall Street Money in the chat says, we want more stories. We want better stories. I was at Unforgiven 2000 for Hardy's versus Edge and Christian in a cage. I was at Dynamite in Philly in May to see them champs. Crazy full circle moment. Yeah, it is crazy. And it's a testament to the hard work that they have both done to try to get to this moment, to try to get back to professional wrestling. I love that, and I respect them for that. I just wish the story for this match was a little better and more compelling and more fun and more exciting. It just isn't. We get it. I know we all know that they're two of the best tag teams ever. But give me a reason. Give me some promos. Give me something. Give me something more than just resting on the laurels of your star power. That's something I would expect out of WWE. That's something I would expect out of a company that doesn't really give a crap about pro wrestling. But AEW is supposed to be the pro wrestling company. I respect you. I love you. What are we doing? No, I don't respect you. I don't love you. Give me some level of contention between these two. Anyway, the match is gonna be awesome. Again, it feels like an after, because we're all gonna talk about how great the match was. We're all gonna talk about how, oh my god, you still got it. But I wish I was more excited about it. And I'm sure after 10 minutes into the match, I'm gonna get excited. I will be at Wembley Stadium. But I just wish it was more. That has been, a lot of the narrative around the build up to these other matches, these mid-card matches for All In. Just, I wish there was more. Did I get my tickets? No, not yet. Waiting on Kenny Baum on that one. Tweet at Kenny Baum so he knows to buy the tickets. But I think that this is going to be a bit of an interesting booking decision, because do you want to end Cope and Cage's run here? I think conventional wisdom would tell you the Young Bucks are probably winning. That's what I think everyone expects. I think this might be a bit of a swerve, no Strickland. And the red herring is, everyone thinks that this is Cope and Cage's last time as the champions. I don't think that this is their last match as the champions. I don't believe that Cope and Cage lose it All In. My mind, of course, tells me that, but my heart tells me that they will continue to be the champions. Because if the Bucks are champions, I see them going and challenging or facing Kofi and Austin Creed whenever they decide to come in. That's what I see for them. So I think we hold off on that, and I think we get in Wembley. This is, again, this is Cope's first time wrestling at Wembley Stadium. His first real AEW stadium show. So I think he is probably going to get sent out there to win. And it's going to be this awesome moment. A lot of feel-good stuff on the show, probably expected. That's how these Wembley shows traditionally go. Wembley usually has a very feel-good moment to it. Here we go. We have slander in the chat. Don't believe the cap chat. I've been telling him let's get tickets for months. Well, listen, Kenneth. Shoot me a text. Give me a call. Hop in Discord. And let's do it. It's not getting called. I asked him. Listen, I asked Kenneth, Mr. Bombington, and if he wanted to get tickets just a couple of days ago. And Mr. Bombington said, no, we need to wait. So here I am, waiting, Mr. Bombington. Shout out Kenny Baum. Friend of the show, Kenny Baum. Friend of the channel. Friend in real life. One of the best content creators out there today. And if you disagree, you got another thing coming. Anyway, Kobe Cage, retain. That's my prediction. That's my spoiler. That's my preview. And I think we get a bit of the lost Bucks here. And I think instead of going in the direction of these different tag teams and the Young Bucks like getting the belts back and all that, I think we go in the direction of Kenny Omega probably, spoiler alert, losing, rejoining with the Bucks, and we get the trios. Kenny, the Young Bucks versus Swerve and Kofi and Xavier. And we get the payoff to over a decade of a build for a match that everyone has wanted to see. We don't obviously have Big E in there, but I think that it is interesting, and we'll go right into the trios match because we're talking about it. Like the trios open challenge, whatever the hell this is going to be. It hasn't officially been announced, but it's going to happen. Brodito and Hangman are going to put up their titles in some sort of multi-man match. It's really being built around the debut of the artist formerly known as the New Day. And if you're a betting person and you're like, oh, are Kofi and Xavier, or Kofi and Austin Creed going to be there? Bet the house on it. It is going to happen. They will be at All In. They will make their debuts at All In. And I expect them to win. And they will be Swerve's tag team partners. And maybe this is the shot in the arm the trios division truly needs in order to become something serious, at least for the next couple of months. Because you have the insurgency of this all-time level tag team with a guy who is, by many accounts, one of AEW's biggest stars in Swerve Strickland. And the cool thing is that Swerve kind of represents the polar opposite of what the New Day in WWE stood for. He represents he is the antithesis of what Big E was for the vast majority of the time that group was together. Big E was this big, awesome, fun teddy bear who could rip your head off. And Swerve is a freaking assassin. Swerve is a psychological beast. And for me, that direction for Kofi and Creed is way more interesting than just having them come in and do their old New Day shtick. A serious version of these guys, a version that probably should have been what we got out of them once they turned on Big E. That's what I'm interested in seeing. And then that version coming out to go up against Kenny and the Bucks. The trios division and those trios championships mean more because you have a feud built around not only the belts, but also the history between all of these people. Swerve obviously has beef with Kenny. The Young Bucks have real beef with, or not real beef, but like, a historical beef with the New Day. Kenny, of course, has beef with Austin Creed. Beef, 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 to quote Big E, big meaty men slapping meat. So, I think Swerve should win. I think Kofi should win. I think Creed should win. And I think that is what will happen. Which do I pick? The PlayStation Blackout or biggest annual of the year, All in London? All in London is what I would pick. Anyway, but I don't play games like that. Couple matches left to talk about. And these ones I would put in the category of having better builds compared to the rest of these matches that we've discussed today. You have the Casino Gauntlet, MJF, and Andrade El Idolo. This is a match that I think has been kind of brewing. Like, this really is a way to get Andrade and Max fighting each other without blowing off the big match that you're probably going to have at All Out in Chicago. And I've loved the stuff they've done with Max on his return. Listen, the one true champ thing is kind of funny. The only thing I'll say is I thought it was BS that Max wasn't on Dynamite in Baltimore, both because I was there live and I was looking forward to that, but also because we are only a week. We have one show left. And I know Max is going to be at Glasgow, Dynamite. I know all that stuff is going to happen. They're going to do their big preview, whatever. But it's one of those things of you gotta build that excitement, that anticipation. You got to build it up more than you have. So having a guy there fighting, there cutting promos is important to me. I think there could have been more promos. Maybe they're saving it for post All In. That's probably what they're doing. But that's what I would have done. So, the way the gauntlet works, as many of you know, the first person to get a pinfall or a submission wins and will win a title shot at some point in the future. So, Max and Andrade are entering number 1 and 2. They have an advantage in that regard because the earlier you are in the match, the earlier and sooner you can, in theory, stop it. This match is going to have a bunch of wild moments, not just from a schmoz and multi-man standpoint, but really also from the standpoint of who is going to debut, who is going to return, and most importantly, who is going to win, because I don't believe it is going to be either Andrade or Max. Yes, in fact, I believe that it will be a bit of a wild card winning this. And the names of who is eligible, who is out there are vast and wide. The biggest name this week that I'm sure everyone is talking about is Ilya Dragunov. Ilya Dragunov, of course, his WWE deal is set to expire. He does not have a non-compete. He is available for AEW at any point. If you ask me, the most logical conclusion is that he ends up in All Elite Wrestling. And he is one of those wild cards I'm talking about. Another wild card that could make their debut in AEW is Sheamus. The Celtic Warrior. He can be called Sheamus. That is his name. I think he is in line for a big moment there. Obviously, they're over in the UK. They love Sheamus over in the UK. Because I believe Sheamus, mark my words, is technically from the UK. Well, no, he's from Dublin. Never mind. He's from Dublin. But even if he was from Belfast, that's we don't recognize that as the UK. I should not be saying that right before I'm going to the UK. But hey, man, free dairy. But that aside, thoughts on Shinsuke? I'll talk about the WWE stuff on the stream later on over at Big Ohm Live. You guys can go watch that, by the way. Pinned in the chat is where I will be immediately following this stream. I will be over on my other channel, and we'll be chopping it up, talking about some of the biggest news and rumor and innuendo in professional wrestling. But first, we got to get through this All In preview. Anyway, so big question is who wins. I think a guy who's overdue for a meaningful title match, a guy who's proven it, is Jay White. I want Jay White to win this. I think Jay White should win this. I think Jay White, hopefully, inshallah, will win it. Now, let's get to the 3 matches that I believe have had the best build of any. The AEW International Championship will be on the line as the champion Kyle Fletcher defends against Konosuke Takeshita and the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada. The implosion of the Don Callis family is upon us. It has been told over the past few years. It has been a beautiful story in many regards, and I cannot wait for it to culminate in this epic encounter. Three of the best pro wrestlers in the game today going at it, fighting for what many believe to be the wrestling championship in All Elite Wrestling, the international title. This belt has been held by workhorses for the organization, and at All In, three of the biggest and best workhorses are going to decide who holds that prize. This is going to be probably the show-stealing match that everyone is going to overlook. This is going to be probably, technically, the best match on the show. And in my opinion, this is going to be the star-making moment for Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher should, and hopefully will win this match. Kyle Fletcher, in my view, is the only real option to win this match. His future in All Elite Wrestling is cemented. A multi-year contract, the ability to call himself the best in the world, and of course, a feud waiting in the wings with Will Ospreay, who everyone expects to win his match. I think it makes all the sense in the world to make him the dominant guy in this match, to have him win, and to have him break away from the Don Callis family. I think when Kyle does it and he does it on his own, that's a much better story to me, personally, than having him, be this weird guy, like the guy with Don Callis by his side. Like, we've done that. We don't need that anymore. This match is going to be insane, spectacular, awesome. I cannot wait for it. I do think Kyle Fletcher will win. There's an outside chance that Konosuke Takeshita does get the victory here, but I will tell you this. Do not expect Okada to win. In fact, I would have Fletcher pin Okada in this match. And then that's that. Now we have the main events. The AEW Women's World Championship on the line. The belt collector, Ultimo Monet, Mercedes Moné, the biggest signing of the past few years in AEW, the woman who has changed professional wrestling time and time again, who has saved and led the women's revolution across the globe, holding titles in multiple different countries, and who has had, over the past year, her downfall in that revolution, losing all those belts, vacating some of those belts, and being at the lowest point she has ever been throughout her years as a character. Mercedes Moné is looking to capitalize on her Owen Hart Cup victory and defeat the biggest kryptonite she has in professional wrestling. It is not Bayley. It is not Pam. It is not Charlotte Flair. It is Willow Nightingale, the reigning, defending, undisputed AEW Women's World Champion. Woman who has been a homegrown act for AEW. A woman who everyone loves, who is arguably the most beloved wrestler on this roster, and a woman who is in the midst of her first ever reign and the first ever month of that reign. So now the questions, both from a booking and character standpoint, begin to spin. Should Willow only have a month-long title reign before losing it to Mercedes? And if Willow does lose, then how do you take her character after that? Which directions does she go in? And if Mercedes loses, then what's going on? It's been 2.5 years and she hasn't won the belt. People can complain in either direction and they have a justified beef. I personally would have loved this to be a heel turn for Willow and a face turn for Mercedes. I would have loved to have seen a face Mercedes conquer her demons, be at her lowest point, and then be forced to reckon with her evil ways of the past and redeem herself in this story. That is not what AEW has done. But what they have done is tell a story of a heel Mercedes who understands that Willow has her number, who understands that she needs to be better, who everyone still believes is the best women's wrestler in the world today, and of Willow, who is not afraid, who is not just being nice to be nice anymore, who is being the champion that everyone wants her to be. And I am digging that. It's not the direction I would go, but it's what I'm digging. For this match, however, I believe that if you are going to have Mercedes lose, there is one way to do it. And it is by having a double turn. People will scoff at that. People will look at the idea of Willow being a heel and say, that is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. But unless you do what everyone expects, which is Mercedes winning and Mercedes finally getting this big moment, which I think would fall a little flat, I believe the best way for you to move forward here is by having Willow, the woman who has always done things the right way, who is in the freaking conglomeration, for God's sakes, have her be faced with a choice. Referees down. Mercedes reeling. Championship laying there right in front of Willow. Willow has thrown everything at Mercedes, yet Mercedes will not give up. That's the majority of the match. Mercedes down for the count, kicks out. Mercedes down for the count again, kicks out. Mercedes powerbombed on the side of the table, kicks out every single time. And the heart of Mercedes, the thing that made us all love her in the first place, a fighter, begins to show her face throughout all of the adversity she has faced, losing her belts, being criticized for her decision to join AEW and leave the biggest wrestling company in the world. All of that stuff is now coming to the forefront, and Mercedes is fighting through all that criticism. At the same time, she's fighting through Willow's attacks. Willow, over the course of the match, goes a little crazier and a little crazier. And then that moment, belt in hand, Willow looks at her, looks around at the thousands in attendance at Wembley Stadium, and puts that belt down before immediately picking it up and hitting Mercedes over the head with it. Hitting her move, 1, 2, 3. Willow Nightingale retains the Women's World title. Now, this is a controversial opinion. And listen, I personally would love for Mercedes to win. I just don't think it's time. Not for the story. I think it's long overdue in general. But I believe that if you've come this far and you've waited this long, you can wait just a little bit longer. Because then you have a more interesting Willow. A Willow who has turned her back on the fans. A Willow who is now proving that she's more than just a nice face. She's more than just a nice person. She's more than just nice. She's a badass who's willing to do whatever it takes. And the sympathy now is with Mercedes for arguably the first time throughout her run in All Elite Wrestling. And then that will make Mercedes' eventual win, whether it's at All Out, whether it's at Wrestle Dream, whether it's at Full Gear, World's End, whenever it is, sooner the better, make that feel all the bigger. Or you could do what everyone expects and have Mercedes win. In the end, I guess we'll see. I love how I threw that in there. Anyway, let's get to it. The final match, the main event. Hey, listen, we do solid booking here. The final match, the main event, Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, AEW Men's World Championship on the line. The rubber match in the trilogy, but a rubber match that, as Kenny Omega on Dynamite said, isn't really a rubber match because Will Ospreay needed Don Callis in order to defeat Kenny Omega. The only time that they went toe-to-toe and they didn't have any interference was when Kenny Omega defeated Will Ospreay at Wrestle Kingdom back in 2023. So, if we're going by that record, and we're going by what Will Ospreay even admitted, Will Ospreay, at his best in the past couple of years, has never beaten Kenny Omega. So now Will Ospreay is looking at a situation. He won the Owen Hart Cup. He's come back from neck fusion surgery. He's come back from being riddled at a hospital bed. He's come back through all of this adversity. And the cleaner Kenny Omega is also back. Kenny Omega, in order to win that title, did not need to go to a dark place, but he did need Will there. He did need Will in order to even the playing field for him. He did need Will in order to have a chance against MJF, because MJF had Kenny dead to rights. And at some level, the cleaner knew that. The cleaner that has been dormant inside Kenny Omega's head understood and understands that people make that connection, and he hates it. Because at his height, the cleaner Kenny Omega was the best fucking wrestler in the world. The cleaner Kenny Omega was the catalyst for AEW existing. Mark my words. All of the Cody, all of the Young Bucks, all of that, great, fine, and definitely necessary. But if you take Kenny Omega out of the equation, there is no AEW. There is no original All In. There is no Pro Wrestling Revolution. That is what the cleaner Kenny Omega has meant to AEW. That's what the cleaner Kenny Omega has meant to professional wrestling. And now, Kenny, who is at the end, or towards the end of his career, is looking at a situation where he doesn't know if he's got the ability to do it on his own. But if he goes to his most successful, his most violent, his most awesome gimmick, I think that might just be enough to give the character Kenny Omega the confidence he needs. And we saw that confidence come out. Kenny talking about how Will and his son need to find a new hero. Talking about how Will Ospreay is going to get embarrassed in front of his countrymen. I think that's cool. Him hitting the one-winged angel through a table at Rive in Baltimore was awesome. Making those silly faces, cutting that silly promo. It's what we loved about Kenny. It's the best version of Omega versus an Ospreay who I think is still trying to find himself. And we are at the doorstep of this show. The talent are already over across the pond. We're looking at Wembley in less than a week at this point. So that's the case. Will Ospreay better find himself during this match, and I think that's going to be the story of it. Will Ospreay is going to have to pull out every single move in his arsenal, and then some, in order to defeat the cleaner, because he's not going down easily. So that will be the story of the match. Can Will Ospreay power through all of the tactics, the tables, all that stuff, and defeat the cleaner Kenny Omega? Can he do it with the pressure of main eventing Wembley Stadium, arguably the biggest and most hallowed stadium in all of professional wrestling? Can he do it by himself? Can he do the one thing he's never been able to do by himself, defeat Kenny Omega? And can he do it for England? Can he do it for the UK? Can he do it on home soil? Spoiler alert, he will. Will Ospreay will win this match. It will be promotional malpractice to have Kenny win. I understand. I know. I'm loving the cleaner Kenny Omega. I'm loving this title reign. I'm loving the idea of Kenny continuing to cut these silly promos in that silly voice and making an awesome fool out of himself. But gosh darn it, you can't do it. You can't do it. I listen, but both from my standpoint, listen, forget the storytelling, forget the wait for Will Ospreay winning the title and all that. My gosh, bro. My gosh. I am going to be in that stadium as soon as Kenny and I align on tickets. I'm going to be in that stadium. They will probably riot if Will Ospreay does not win. As much as we love Kenny, I don't know. Like I would feel very, very much for my safety, personally. So for that reason, and many more, I think it's long overdue. Ospreay should win. And he should hit Kenny with a one-winged angel, Stormbreaker, a hidden blade, and the Tiger Driver 91, all in sync, one after the other, and win the belt. Homer's going to jump the gate. I am not going to jump no gate. Listen, I'm going to be overseas. I'm not going to be doing any of that. Okay? Let me be clear. Not going to be doing any of that. But that is All In. That is my preview for All In. Thank you for those who have joined me over the past hour and 17. If you want to continue this conversation in a more silly and fun way, the best thing you can do is hit the link in the chat that is pinned at the top. You hit that link, it takes you over to the live stream that's going to begin in just a couple of minutes. Myself and all of you wonderful people can go over there and we can have a fun time. We'll be watching some interviews. We'll be looking at the latest wrestling news across the world of professional wrestling. Is TKO about to buy AEW? Is Bayley going to re-sign with WWE? All that and so much more over there over at Big Ohm PW. Go check that out. Link pinned in the chat and in the description if you're still lost. I'll be live over there in just a few. Until next time, thank you guys for joining us for the first ever Wrestle Vibes Live. Kenny Bomb might jump the barricade. Oh dear. Kenny, they are going to revoke your passport, my guy, if you do that. Anyway, but I appreciate all of you who've tuned in. We will do this again at some point. I don't know when, but eventually we will, and we will have other creators, inshallah. I promise, eventually. But thank you for joining me. This was a bit of an experimental stream, and I am appreciative of everyone who supported this channel. I'm appreciative of everyone who has, showed up for not only the stream, but ever watched the video. Obviously, the channel is, in my view, doing very well, and I am just grateful to all of the people who love the content. There will be more content. There will always be more content. And yeah, like I could not be any happier with the direction of this channel. So it's all because of you guys. If you guys have ideas for videos, by the way, we have a community tab. Go check that out and like post in there what you guys want me to talk about next. Comment what you guys want me to talk about in whatever video is coming out. We have a whole host of videos coming out pretty soon. Also, if you guys want to get some early access to videos as well as videos that are locked up in the archives, you guys can become a member for $5 a month. You get some early access and get exclusive access to videos that are not available to the public, that are locked up in the Wrestle Vibes archive. So go do that. Become a member for $5 a month. You also get a shout out in every video as well. So a lot of perks there. Go check that out. But I will be over at Big Ohm in just a few. So click the link in the chat and go over there. But in the end, I guess we'll see.